I groaned as Frankie slid the moist intestines into the warm slit on my belly. I could feel remnants of rock and dirt scraping my exposed flesh as they entered the weeping wound. My stomach painfully bulged as he separated the flaps of skin, scooping my innards back in by the handful. I know, big guy. I'm doing my best, but I'm not a freaking doctor. His blood and grime-stained hands trembled, and his eyes darted around the room. I need to find some stitches or something. Frankie yanked out the medical table's drawers open one by one, spilling out the contents until he found a medical staple gun. This is gonna have to do. No time for the fancy shit. The cold plastic device stung my skin as he pressed it against me and squeezed 7 times. Each staple sent a white-hot shiver of pain through my nervous system. My head drooped weakly to the side. I need you to stay awake. Frankie lightly slapped my face. You ain't dying on me. I looked down and noticed part of my intestines had been stapled outside of my stomach. I told you I'm not a doctor, he shrugged. Now let's move. Frankie swung my arm over his shoulder, glanced at the syringe on the table, and put it in his pocket. This might come in handy. We moved down a narrow hallway, steam hissing from the pipe-laden dirt walls. My legs trembled, buckling as I leaned into Frankie for support. The floor shook slightly below me, and I could hear the faint sound of screaming emanating from the room behind us. The creature was making its way out of the tunnel. You came back for me, I croaked. Why? Because I'm not a friggin' asshole, he smirked. Plus, I owe you one for saving my ass earlier. Consider us even. We're gonna get to the elevator and... No, I interrupted. We need to shut this hellhole down. We need to get to the power supply room. What the hell do you need to go in there for? This facility is diesel-powered. I learned a bit about diesel engines in the Navy. If we can close off the oil supply, we might be able to destroy this place. I have no clue where the power room is, big guy, but I'm with you. We continued down the corridor until we heard a pack of guards marching forward. Frankie pushed open the nearest door before they noticed us, and we snuck inside. The room was chilled and had several rows of surgical tables, much like the one I was on just moments before. A few of the tables had bodies on them, covered haphazardly with white sheets. Holy shit, Frankie said as he pulled one of the sheets off. What did they do to them? The man's body was pale, hollow, and had a large, unhealed scar on the left side. It was the man we'd found dead earlier. I think that thing is harvesting organs. The warden is feeding it prisoners. What the fuck? I cupped my fleshless hand over Frankie's mouth before he could finish. I could hear footsteps approaching the door. I pointed to 2 empty tables, and Frankie nodded in understanding. We both climbed on top of one and covered ourselves, trying to slow our breathing as the door opened. What do you mean he's gone? The warden's southern drawl was unmistakable. I thought he was strapped down. He was, sir. Normally we give them the sedative to keep them from fighting the restraints. It sounded like Izzy's voice. Don't give me that shit, son. I heard him rip the sheet off of a body behind me. You think he could have yanked out of those restraints after being disemboweled? Look at this wound. The prisoners hardly last a week after having half their guts pulled out. I understand that, sir, but someone must have helped him. He pulled the sheet off of another body. It wasn't this guy. He's dead. Warden, I think... Were you in on this inmate? The cover ripped off the body next to me. Did you help him escape? My heart dizzied as I felt him grip the sheet just above my head. Cartwright, I heard Peters bust the door open as the warden released the sheet. "Inmate Russo is gone. We can't find him." "God damn it!" Cartwright's voice faded as he marched out of the room. "Do I have to do everything myself?" The room remained unnervingly silent as we held our breath, waiting for Izzy to exit the room. "You guys can come out now," he said. "There were only 6 bodies in here earlier. Now I count 8. "You son of a bitch," Frankie said as he pulled free from the sheet and confronted Izzy. "You knew! This whole time you knew what they were doing to us." "We don't have time for this." I sat up. "Izzy, do you know how to get to the power control room?" Izzy released a deep sigh before speaking. "Go out the door and to the left. Follow the corridor and go through the very last door. There will be a stairwell. The power control room is at the bottom." I stumbled off the table, nearly losing my balance before being caught by Frankie. He put one arm under mine and held me to the door. "Hey, sir," Izzy called out as we left. "I was just following orders." The corridor was darker when we entered the morgue. The convulsions were more sporadic and violent. I stumbled against Frankie as we walked, struggling to hold myself up. I could hear the metal door from the grinder room banging down the hall. We arrived at the stairway door to find it locked by a keycard reader. "Fuck!" Frankie yelled. "You still have your keycard?" "It's still my first day." I choked out a laugh. "They didn't even give me a name badge." "Where do you think you're going?" We turned to see Williams standing behind us with a walkie-talkie in his hand. A surge of heat flowed through me. I stood as tall as my broken posture would allow. "We're going to the power control room. We're shutting this place down." I stared him in the eyes as I spoke. Williams looked to the floor and hesitated for a moment, fiddling with the walkie-talkie in his hand. He then clipped the device to his belt and approached us. "You're gonna need this." He handed me his ID card. "Now punch me in the face." "What?" I stammered. "Punch me in the face, so they don't." Frankie popped him in the jaw, knocking him out cold before he could finish his sentence. "I always wanted to do that," he smirked. I slid the ID card through the scanner as a deafening clang rang out from down the hall. The creature had busted down the door. The alarm system triggered, drowning out the fluorescent lighting and pouring red sirens throughout the facility. The alarm bells were louder than ever. "Nowhere to go but down," I yelled at Frankie. We entered the dark stairwell, a heavy scent of musk and diesel stinging our nostrils. As we continued downward, the roaring of the engine slowly drowned out the alarm. The power room was more of an engine room. 4 school bus-sized engines were lined up next to each other, 2 of them chugging with energy. I tried to yell to Frankie, but the engines were so loud, my voice was muted entirely. I wandered around, trying to figure out which valve was the oil supply. Steam spewed from the hot pipes, fogging my vision. I started slamming them shut at random in desperation. My skinless hand twitched and trembled, but I gritted my teeth and pushed on. Frankie caught sight of me and joined in, shutting every valve he could find. The engines roared in agitation, angry that we'd shut off their fuel source. Gray smoke poured from every bolt hole, and they began to rock and shake powerfully. I dropped to the floor and covered my ears, pulling Frankie down with me. The explosion was thundering. The entire room nearly collapsed. I stood and felt a hot drip of blood trickling down my ear. The power was completely dead. No lights, no alarm, nothing but the sound of hot smoke and groaning metal pipes throughout the facility. "This whole place is gonna blow," Frankie yelled. "To the elevator, now!" He ran towards the stairs ahead of me. I could hear his feet banging along the steps before stopping suddenly. "Frankie?" I called out, slowing my pace. I heard a quick scuffle before Frankie came rolling down the steps, hitting the ground in front of me with a thud. Peter stood halfway up, baton in hand. "You've caused a lot of trouble for us, Gonzalez." He smacked the baton against his hand. "I think I'll feed you both to the grinder at the same time." 1,000 screams roared out from behind him, closing in. "Ah, right on cue." He made his way down the stairs. "Let's make sure neither of you put up a fight." He moved quickly down the steps, the screams not far behind. Dust fell freely from the ceiling, mixing in with the smoke. "It's a shame," he said as he raised his baton to me. "You had such potential." Frankie pulled Peter's leg from under him and grabbed his arm before he could strike. "Hold him down!" he yelled. I grabbed Peter's other arm and pinned him to the floor. The beast was larger, angrier than before. It snarled and crawled towards us at an inhumanly fast speed. "Turn away, Frankie," I shouted. "Wait, no, not me, them, you idiot, Peter's sentence was sucked out before he could finish. I pushed myself up with the baton in my hand, grabbed Frankie, and sprinted up the stairs 2 at a time. We had to be quick while the creature was distracted. The hallways were littered with inmates, most wandering aimlessly like zombies, others dragging themselves across the floor. The cell doors must have lost power in the explosion. "This way," I said, pulling Frankie towards the elevator. I ran inside, but realized there were no control buttons. "I told you, son. The only way that the elevator turns on is if I say so." Cartwright approached from behind. "So stand down." "Let us leave, Cartwright," I glared at him. "This whole place is going to blow any minute, and the creature is on its way. There's no use in fighting." I said, "Stand down. That's an order," he barked. "Fuck you," I cracked the baton over his head, "and fuck your orders." I hit him several more times as he lay quivering on the floor before approaching Frankie. The screams were making their way towards us once again. We had precious little time before the creature arrived. "There's a hand crank." I stepped into the elevator, looking up at the cable. "You get in here, I'll crank it till you get up top, then you activate it for me." "You think you can crank that thing with no skin on your hand?" Frankie chuckled. "This place would blow before I made it halfway up." I felt a sharp pain in my back. I reached behind me with my good hand and pulled the syringe from my shoulders. My vision immediately became blurry, and I collapsed onto the elevator floor. "I meant it when I said I was going to get you out of here, big guy," Frankie said. "Find my ma for me. Let her know her Frankie finally did something good for once." "Frankie, wait," I moaned. I watched the creature open its mouth above Cartwright's as the elevator door slid shut. I fought to stay conscious as I slowly creaked upward, foot by foot. The box shook and twitched, ready to give out at any moment. When I finally reached the top, Willie stood before me with a fat dip of tobacco in his lip, the night sky shining behind him. "Damn it, are you the one down there causing all that dang racket? What in the hell happened to you, boy?" A massive explosion rang out in the shaft as I climbed out of it, followed by a smoke plume. The screams continued in anguish. "Oh, hell. How long have you been down there? 12 hours? The timing of all this don't make no sense." "Willie," I sputtered, barely able to lift myself. "Shut the fuck up." I stumbled to my car, turned the spare key, and drove off. I spent the first few days in a motel far from home, unsure if the government had anyone trying to hunt me down. Last week, I tracked down Frankie's mom. It turns out she died of a heart attack just 4 months after Frankie disappeared. Her neighbors think she died of a broken heart. I placed the note Frankie wrote on her gravesite. I don't care if the government comes for me anymore. This time, I'll be ready. I called my military lawyer up and requested another trial. I'm going to tell them the truth about what happened in Guantanamo Bay. I'm going to tell the world about what happened in that underground prison, too. I only have one problem. I've been hearing a distant cluster of screams outside my window every night. I think they're getting closer. Greetings, friends and fiends. It is I, Chronicler. We here at Creepy Spaghet would like to thank Dismal Apparition for allowing us to tell their story. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to stay updated on these terrible tales, and make sure to check out the author in the links below. If you're interested in having your story narrated, be sure to reach out to our humble overseer, as he continues his journey to pull the darkest stories from the infinite depths of the internet. Until next time, fiends. And remember, we are darkness.